Hello and welcome to Fork in the Road. My name is Rusty Gaylord. I am the host and very happy to have you with us here today. Fork in the Road is a conversation with interesting, successful business leaders about how they got to this place in their career. They didn't just drop into it. There were journeys and decisions and events that happened in their life to bring them here. So we're going to explore some of that. And we're going to also explore what are the lessons you take from that? And what does leadership mean? And how can you be successful as a leader? So those are some of the things we're talking about. This is live. We are live doing this here on LinkedIn. Feel free to put comments and questions in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And I want to introduce today our guest, Jay Romback. I'm super happy to have Jay with us. Jay was the head of HR for Celebrity Cruise Lines, managing a leading team of 19,000 people around the world. So a huge responsibility. And he is now a coach and a consultant, both in the HR world and helping people to figure out their next phase in their career. So welcome, Jay. I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Rusty.
Well, hey, let's jump into this change because you went from leading HR, a massive organization, 19,000 people, to running your own business. Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the scope of the job, it was my journey there of over 30 years to get there. So, Rusty, it was it was a huge responsibility, and it was actually I was the first leader of a human resource function for that cruise line, which in the cruise industry, we're talking about the early 2000s, human resources didn't really exist on the ships, even though you had hundreds and soon to be over 1,000 employees, right, on the ships. So they were actually workplaces, large ones, floating around the world. And so we finally got the notion at Royal Caribbean Group, where I worked for 21 and a half years, to start human resources. And then, of course, all the other cruise lines then joined in. And then I was fortunate enough to have that role. And as you said, it ended up being, right when COVID hit, we had over 10 vessels across the world. And the 19,000 employees, a lot of those were on vacation because employees rotated in and out, right? So on vacation and so on. So yeah, it was a huge responsibility. But then, COVID hit, and, the cruise industry was shut down. It didn't slow down. It was shut down. And, for good reasons, at least initially, being all the things we heard, some bad incidents there at first with some cruise ships when COVID was first hitting, and then you got everybody in a confined space and all that kind of stuff. But what happened is all the cruises were shut down globally. And so literally overnight, we became an operation of getting guests and crew off the ship. And in effect, that led to a complete change in that industry, in which myself and hundreds, if not thousands of others, have left. And so I left at that point, and that's what transpired. That was in early 2021.
Yeah. So just first, real quick shout out to a couple people putting chats in there. So welcome to you guys. And again, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. And Jay, I'm curious. I mean, we all know the cruise industry was hugely hit when COVID happened. Of all the industries you can think of, that's one of the ones that comes top of mind. Like, oh man, it was so brutal. I'm curious for you, being in the role that you were in during that time, is there anything you learned about leadership and how to navigate really difficult situations?
Yeah, absolutely, Rusty. And I guess the way I would preface that is that you learn the most when you absolutely know nothing about what you need to do. And what I mean by that is we were presented a scenario that not only never existed before, but frankly, no one could anticipate. I mean, who would have anticipated literally in such a short period of time, we go from a very lucrative, growing vacation business, booming all across the world, ships being built by all companies left and right, to literally overnight shutting everything, down. So I guess the answer to that is, for me, is agility. You had to go into situations you never faced before, and you just had to take a step, and you know what? You're going to get it wrong a lot of times, but you got to take the step. I mean, you're a leader and you got to come up with solutions in situations that have never existed before. And there are thousands of crew members relying on you to get home. There's guests relying on you to get back. There's employees in the corporate office that are concerned and worried about their own welfare. And so you literally had to every single day think through how to manage certain situations. And you learn just every single day. And some of it was just taking a punch in the chin and saying, maybe I should have did it differently, but you learn and how to do it. So that was a big learning, Rusty. And I would say to this day, that has been the most fundamental change, in leadership, is to really think in an agile way, to be able to be open-minded and lead through times of uncertainty when you don't know what the outcomes are and when you don't exactly know what to do. But that's what leaders need to do. And that's what we learn to do. And that's a lot of what has transpired today, because variations of that same theme are continuing.
What when I was picking a title or a theme for this conversation, I said, lead yourself first. And as you're talking about that situation, and I think about you in your career, right? You went from leading HR, 19,000 people all over the world, 10 different ships, to now having your own business, right? So you went from this massive organization to a tiny organization.
Yeah.
But with that, having made that journey myself, I know how much uncertainty there is. I know how agile you have to be as you're starting your own business, because you've never done it before. Like you spent 21 years in the cruise industry, always working for someone else. I had that same experience, and you go off on your own. It's like, gosh, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I'm curious about how you applied some of those principles of leading through uncertainty and agility and the willingness to make a decision and take action, how those tools have helped you to lead yourself in this journey from a corporate role into an entrepreneurial role.
Yeah, what a great question, Rusty, because that really is the key to my growth. And I believe people, even like yourself in similar situations, have really grown. And it has been those skills. Now I'm a huge workforce of one. And so if I need to call my IT department, I call myself. If I need to call my marketing department. So you're exactly right. But even then you're still learning. So for instance, when I first started being an entrepreneur, I tried to do everything. I tried to be a blogger. I tried to be a content producer. I tried to be a networker. I tried to be, all these things, because I'm passionate. I get to actually take my gifts and bring them out to the world. But then you soon realize that you can't really do that. It's just not sustainable. It's just in terms of just amount of time, that you have. So you have to think again in agile ways and say, what are your priorities? Reprioritize. Sometimes, Rusty, you're reprioritizing every day, and just based on where the opportunities are and where you can reach the people. The bottom line is, I went into my own business, and I'm sure you did too. And I'm thinking most everyone in the same circumstances, to solve a problem and to help people at a bigger scale. Certainly one of my options was to go back into the corporate world as a human resources executive. I had that option. I probably still do. But I chose not to, because of the level of experience that I have, and that I want to provide that in different ways. But it has to be thinking different. It has to be looking at your skills, but looking at the problem first and where the people are feeling it. And then you have to then adjust, because you're not going to fit people that are really wanting help. In my case, in careers or professional life, and don't know where to turn. I have no interest in fitting them into a model or a scheme of learning that I have. I have to learn what they are going through. What they are going through and what they are experiencing in their own situation. So that's where agility comes in. It's listening, it's taking the scenario, getting as much information as you can, making the best decision. And if it's not going right, read the tea leaves fast as you can and pivot,
and
right?
Adjust.
And learn and pivot, and try to get feedback too, because not a lot of people are going to give it to you. So I hope that helps. I think the skills have been very, very helpful that I learned now help me today.
So I want to, I mean, I want to come back to what you're doing now. And so I've got one other thing I want to ask you about, kind of, it's a little bit based on your past experience, but,
Okay.
um, you know, one of the things that, one of the groups that I often find myself working with are people who are in the middle layer of leadership, right?
Hmm.
They're not the CEOs, but they're not the
Yeah.
first time managers. They're in the middle, directors, VPs, that kind of level. And, I often find that these people are in a difficult position because you've got pressure from the top to execute, but especially in the world that we're in today, you've got pressure from the bottom to be human, to have empathy, to understand people and to relate to them. And it's these people in the middle who have to bridge those two. Like,
Yeah.
how do I lead as a human person, as a human being, but still make sure that we're delivering the results that we're expected to deliver?
Yeah.
And I'm curious
Well,
if, from your experience, what have you seen that makes people in those kind of positions successful or unsuccessful?
yeah, no, what a great question, because really I have read very clearly in numerous sources that the role you just described is the most difficult leadership role that exists today, arguably,
Mhm.
right? And the reason for that is you have the great pressure on companies now to either make up revenues lost during COVID or to continue to pivot their businesses based on the new world of work. So the
Mhm.
pressure is coming in from the top, to the
Mhm.
shareholders or to the investors. And with that, and also to the employees, and all this thing, all we're hearing about, very real, about taking care of employees, their well-being, all this burnout we're hearing, this need for resilience, this need for engagement, and just to really take care of employees at a deeper level. So you got to do that at the same time, keep the pressure exactly as you described. And it's a very, very difficult job, because a lot of times the leader has to stand up for the company, who is
Mhm.
making some promises and lofty goals about how we treat our employees, but at the same time have to manage the reality of making the profits. So it is a real squeeze, and it becomes a more difficult leadership challenge. At the same time, it becomes an opportunity to step up and really stand out as a leader, more in some ways perhaps than ever before. And that is, how can you just start with being real yourself? All right.
Mhm.
Take the corporate mask off. You know what? Nobody knew the last 2 years were going to happen. Nobody knew that we were going to be in hybrid work environments, that we were going to have so much pressure with the great resignations, just keeping enough people in the seats to get the job done. So we just have to be very real and explain and continue to talk to people about what it means to us, and listen to what it means to them. Where are they struggling? Where do they need help? Where are there things that, we can do more to help them? How can I, as a leader, do more, to help you? And then when they say, I thought we were going to be this, or the company was going to do this, or we're going to, you just again have to be authentic and real and say, let me find out for you. I think that's important. Here's what we're going to do within our team to make things better. And let me continue to ask and to find out. The last thing you don't want to do is go and say, well, the company made these promises and they're not going to do it. You don't want to do that. You got to be the ultimate team player, because that truly is leadership. You've got to be there for your team. You've got to be there across teams and be there to collaborate with your partners. And it really starts with you, Rusty, the person, the leader.
Yeah.
Looking in the mirror and saying, who am I, and can I, and then how do I care for myself? It's not easy. There's a lot on my shoulders. And
Yeah.
how do I just rally people around what the real data is, what's really happening? And you know what? If we don't have all the answers, let's just talk about it and see what we can control.
Jay, there's so much wisdom in that. I mean, I heard being authentic, taking care of yourself, really, and starting with this question of who am I, and
Yeah.
like what matters to me, and just bringing that forward, sharing that with your team, being transparent with them. Under this theme of leading yourself first. I mean, those are clearly examples of you've got to be your best version of you before you
Yeah.
have any opportunity to be an effective leader.
Absolutely.
So, I think just to see if you have any additional comments on this, I just want to put up a comment or a question we got here from Ryan. You can see on the screen here, but
Mhm.
during times of crisis, what can people in the middle do to be both indispensable up and advocating down, right? So that you're
Mhm.
managing kind of that pinch point? And, maybe it's elaborating, or, maybe you've already, I think to some extent you've already answered that, but to see if you have any additional comments.
Yeah, no, it's Ryan, that's a great question. And you know what? And no one has all the answers, but I believe I have enough of an idea that the good starting point, and that is you still have to be reliable and dependable at a higher level to your senior leadership or who you report to. And what I mean by that is you no longer can lead just a team. You have to be a leader, period. So that means collaborating across, collaborating up and down, and because people don't want to work with people who are difficult to work with. So, you know what? And that doesn't mean you have to be everybody's best friend. You're going to be tough but respectful. You're going to be helpful. And that's how you become indispensable to the people above you, and how you get recognized. Because what leaders do is they find the opportunity and uncertainty, and they lead. They don't wait for somebody to tap them on the shoulder and say, let's do something about this, right? You got to lead. You got to go forward. And then the way you then help the individuals that work underneath you or with you on project teams is to take them along with you. Help them with you in projects that maybe they've never ventured to before. Give them a taste and guide, so they're in the action. They see exactly that, you know what? There's no clear answer here. I'm not kidding you. There's no clear answer here. So we're going to try this. And if that doesn't work, we're going to try this. But you know what? We're going to keep this team along. We're going to keep this team along. And we're going to keep everybody in the loop. And that's just what it is. I know that's idealistic in many ways. I understand that. And it takes an extraordinary leader to adapt, to lead that way. And not everybody's going to get it right. But taking care of yourself also means being humble and learning that you're not going to get it right all the time, but you're going to get better the next time, right? And you're going to know how to lead in uncertainty. So that's the way I would answer it. Sorry to be a little long-winded, but you got to stay dependable to everyone, and that's how you're remain accountable to the individuals above. And the people that work and look for you for leadership are going to be inspired by what you do, are going to be comfortable that you're safe to talk to and you're giving them the truth, and so on.
Such a great answer. I want to pivot a little bit. I think this is super interesting, but I want to pivot a little bit because, I want to go back to where we started, which was you made this transition from working in large corporations for many, many years to being in a company of one, right? To running your own business. And under this idea of, tackling uncertainty and leading when there's no clear answer, and being agile, I think part of your work today is to work with people who are in this place, right? They're, maybe many years into a corporate career and starting to face this problem of, what do I want to do next? I've got more years of work ahead of me. I'm not ready to stop working, but I'm not sure I want to keep doing what I'm doing. This might be a problem. This is an area of uncertainty. This is an area where there's no clear answer. There's no clear path forward. So what do you say, and how do you support someone in a position like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's affecting so many. I mean, I think the good part is, Rusty, is we have heard a large number of people have returned to the workforce. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about, women that had the real issues with daycare and online learning and all that stuff during the COVID. And so many of them left the workforce, as have some of the Gen X and baby boomers who have left and have kind of said, like, I'm not ready to retire yet. What do I do? So I think it starts with really reflecting inside, and because I call it leverage, and the leverage you have is the gifts and the skills that you bring and you've earned, and you've proven. So, the ones that we all have experienced, that have gone through a certain level of career success, we have done things that we are known for and are skilled for, and that doesn't change. In fact, if anything, we evolve that, right? And so one thing you can't do is just rest on your laurels and say, well, I've been successful doing this, and this is the way I'm going to be. I think you break it down into what really are my skills? What do I really, really do? And there's some introspection that goes there, because some of it is, Rusty, the reality is some of it is giving up something that maybe no longer serves them, a behavior,
Yeah.
a style, or something that, maybe has worked for 25 years, but is not going to work anymore. So I think it's all part of a reflection that you really, and through a process, I mean, you can have accountability partners that help you with it. You can get coaches. There's different ways to do it. But the way I would focus on is really get your strengths clear and what your capabilities are. And I see them a little bit differently. So I see strengths is really the absolute best of your skills. And then capabilities are the best of what you have done in the past. So what the important there is to break that down and to say, no matter what's happened to me and my circumstances, and we all have our stories, and we're sitting here talking about a lot of them. We all have our stories of change. The circumstances don't dictate who we are. It's our skills and our abilities and our mindset and what we have done. Because what we have done to be successful in the past, we've done it. It doesn't change. The circumstances of what happened to me professionally, or you or whoever's watching, doesn't change your abilities. And so get really clear on that, and then get clear on what really is it that drives you, and I know a lot of talk's been about purpose and passion. Maybe that's a little overplayed, since sometimes the words get a little nebulous, being overused a little bit, but it's really is what drives your happiness, almost in the term of a hobby that you can monetize, right? That really you can add value. Because at the end, this is your choice. I think in people in this age range that ask that question of reflection is, how can I give back with my skills and really make a difference and be happy about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's leverage, because it comes from me. It's not coming from what another company asked me to do. Or yes, and you say, well, I've got comfort, I've got a paycheck coming, although I could argue about that. The risks there are much higher. However, the leverage then goes to the employer and who you work for and what you're to do. So you see the difference? I would rather argue that the leverage comes here. That doesn't mean you still can't work for an employer, but you're highly focused on the skills that you bring in, and don't settle for work that is not going to inspire you and is going to keep you in this loop of unhappiness. So I hope that helps. I mean, it's just a matter of reflection, asking hard questions, being humble, being brave, because brave is, maybe all the things that I've done in the past don't really matter anymore. Maybe I need to learn a few different things, and that takes courage.
I mean, I think, fundamentally, one of the principles I think is, or one of the characteristics I think is so important about leadership is courage. Whether that's leading yourself through a career transition, whether that's being willing to change a behavior that has served you well for 20 years, right? To let go of that and start to do something else, whether it's navigating a career change, or as you described earlier, in these times of uncertainty, being willing to make a decision and then be wrong. All of that takes courage.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, because you're going to be wrong. It's going to happen. There's no rule books anymore. We threw all those out in the last 2 years.
One of the roles I played in my corporate career, I was a forecaster. And so I was responsible for the forecast. And the first rule of forecasting, at least according to me, is you're never right, because you're always wrong, right? You're either a little too high or a little too low, hopefully only a little bit on either side, but you never get it right on. And so it's kind of like leadership, right? Any decision is rarely perfect.
That's right.
Well, Jay, this has been a fantastic conversation. What is the best way for people to connect with you, to get in touch with you, if they want to explore this conversation, leadership and change with you? How should they connect with you?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Reach out to me at jay@reinventingyou.biz. I don't know if we can put that up there anywhere, Rusty.
Well, let me do that. Yep.
My company is called Reinventing You. The website is reinventingyou.biz, B-I-Z. And you can reach me at jay@reinventingyou.biz, or you can go to the website, and it's going through a little bit of a change right now, but you can still go in there and book a free call with me, and I'll be happy to talk about your situation or provide any counsel, and I won't sell anything, right? So I think there's just so much right now that we're going through that I just think a network of people, Rusty, like yourself and myself, and people that have actually gone through the challenges, that's how we learn from each other. And as I said, everyone's got a story. Feel free to reach out. I'll offer what I can in terms of just suggestions at a high level, and that's just how we learn. I would just encourage everyone, and other than certainly reach out if you'd like. I'd welcome that. Is just care for yourself first, and that is not selfish. That is leadership, right? You cannot possibly lead others in the best possible way until you are in the best leadership position yourself, that you are confident in the midst of uncertainty, that you have courage in the midst of uncertainty, that you understand the new world, and you understand that this is real to people. It's real to you. Don't skip that part. Keep the leverage to yourself. You have gifts to give. Identify what those are. And believe me, the people that are still desperately short of workers need the skills that we have, maybe just in non-traditional ways.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jay. I've got your email here up
Great,
again.
super. Thank you.
But feel free to reach out to Jay. And Jay, thank you for joining us here
You're very
tonight.
welcome. Thanks for having me, Rusty.